My name is Grandma Betty. I'm 87 years old, born in New York, USA. I've lived a long, painful life, one full of secrets I've buried deep inside me. But now that I'm old, I've made peace with telling the truth, no matter how ugly it is. Before I tell you this story, my sweet grandbabies, I want you to do something for me. If you're listening to this, please like and subscribe to Grandma's Tales. And I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. Grandma reads every single one of them. You matter to me. Now let me tell you what happened in my home many years ago. It's not a fairy tale. It's not something I'm proud of. But it's something you need to hear so you never make the same mistake I did. It was a cold spring evening. I remember that night like it was yesterday. My daughter, Lily, stood in front of me, shivering, her small hands clutching her belly, tears running down her face. She was just 14. "Ma?" she said, her voice shaking. "It's Daddy's baby." My knees gave out. I didn't even feel myself fall to the ground. I just remember screaming from the bottom of my soul. My husband, Robert, had been abusing our daughter in silence right under my nose. And now she was pregnant. That was the moment everything inside me broke. A choice had to be made. And I made it. But before we get to that choice, let me take you back to the beginning. Before the pregnancy.
Before the pain.
Before the day Lily's life changed forever. I was 38 years old when I married Robert. He was tall, quiet, and had the kind of smile that could calm a storm. Everyone in town called him Mr. Kind Eyes. People thought I was lucky to marry such a gentle man. And for a while I believed them. He wasn't Lily's real father. Her birth father, Thomas, left me when Lily was just a baby. He disappeared and never looked back. I was working 2 jobs and raising my baby alone when I met Robert. He would come to the diner where I worked and sit by the counter, always ordering black coffee and cornbread. One day, he left a $100 tip. When I went outside to return the money, he told me I deserved it. "You're working too hard, Betty," he said. "You deserve someone to take care of you." My heart was tired, and my body was even more tired. I let him in. The first few years were fine. Robert was good with Lily, at least that's what I thought. He helped her with her schoolwork, picked her up from school when I couldn't. She called him Daddy Rob. I thought we were finally a family. But I didn't see the way he looked at her when she turned 10. I didn't notice how she flinched when he hugged her too long. I brushed it off. He was just trying to be close. I didn't listen to my instincts. Then one day, I found Lily crying in her room.
She was 12 then.
Her door was locked. When I finally got her to open it, she just stared at me with empty eyes. "I don't like the way Daddy Rob hugs me," she said in a whisper. I should have listened. I should have acted. But I told her, "He loves you. That's just how he shows affection." I failed her. I failed my own daughter. Things got worse from there. Lily became withdrawn. She started skipping school, locking herself in the bathroom for hours. Her grades dropped. She stopped smiling. When I asked Robert about it, he said, "It's just teenage hormones. Let her be." And I believed him. But Lily was screaming for help, and I was too blind to see it. One night, I woke up and saw a faint light under Lily's bedroom door. It was past midnight. I walked toward it, my feet cold against the wooden floor. I heard a voice.
Low.
Whispering. I pressed my ear against the door. It was Robert's voice. "Don't cry, baby girl. You know Daddy loves you." I froze. My hands trembled as I twisted the doorknob. But it was locked. I knocked. "Lily? Robert?"
Silence.
Then footsteps. The door opened, and Robert stood there, shirtless, wiping his forehead. "She had a nightmare," he said calmly. "I was just helping her back to sleep." Lily was under her blanket, turned to the wall. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip his face off. But I did nothing. I told myself, maybe he was right. Maybe she really did have a nightmare, That was the night Lily stopped talking to me. She stopped calling me Mama. She stopped hugging me. And she stopped asking for help. A year later, the truth exploded in my face like a bomb. That's the night she told me about the pregnancy. I still remember that moment. Her hands on her stomach, her face broken, her words barely coming out. It's Daddy's baby. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. Robert sat in the living room that night, acting like nothing was wrong, watching the news, drinking beer. My body shook with rage. I walked past him, into the kitchen. My eyes landed on the butcher knife near the sink. I picked it up. And that's when it hit me. I had to make a choice. A choice no wife, no mother should ever have to make. And just when I was about to take my next step, there was a knock at the door. A loud, thunderous knock that would change everything. I stood there frozen, my hand gripping that cold butcher knife so tightly I could hear my bones crack. My heart pounded in my chest like a marching drum. I wasn't sure if I was going to swing that knife at Robert or fall to the ground and cry. But then, that knock on the door broke the silence like a gunshot. Robert turned around from the couch and looked at me. "You gonna get that?" he asked, like nothing had just happened. I didn't answer. I slowly placed the knife down on the counter and walked to the door with shaky feet. My body felt like it wasn't mine anymore, just skin and bones moving on autopilot. When I opened the door, it was Sheriff Dalton, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a thick mustache and eyes that saw right through you. He had a flashlight in one hand and a serious look on his face. "Evening, Betty," he said, tipping his hat. "Mind if I come in?" I nodded, barely able to find my voice. What's this about, Sheriff?" "I just need to ask a few questions," he replied. Robert had already walked over, casual as ever. "Something wrong, officer?" he asked, his face calm, his voice smooth like butter. Sheriff Dalton looked at both of us for a moment, then focused on me. "Where's Lily?" That's when my knees buckled again. I knew something had happened. Something big. My daughter must have told someone. Maybe a friend. A teacher. Someone finally heard her cry. I pointed to the hallway. "She's in her room." The sheriff walked past me gently, like he didn't want to scare me. But I could feel the storm brewing inside him. The same storm I had been carrying for years and refused to let out. Minutes later, he came back with Lily by his side. Her head was low. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She was wearing a hoodie, even though the house was warm. Sheriff Dalton looked at Robert and said one thing. "Sir, I'm going to need you to come with me." Robert chuckled, like it was all a joke. "On what grounds?" Then Lily stepped forward, my baby girl, and she said in a soft but clear voice, "He's been doing things to me since I was 9. And I'm pregnant." Silence. Dead silence. Robert's smile disappeared. He turned to look at me like I was supposed to defend him, like I was going to say it was all a lie. But I said nothing. Sheriff Dalton didn't wait. He pulled out the handcuffs and slapped them onto Robert's wrists. "You have the right to remain silent," he started, but Robert exploded. "Betty, are you going to let them take me? Tell them it's a lie. Tell them." I couldn't even look at him. My eyes were locked on Lily. As they dragged him out, neighbors started peeking through their curtains. Flashing lights from the patrol car painted our front yard red and blue. Shame covered me like a heavy coat I couldn't take off. After they left, Lily collapsed in my arms. I held her so tight, rocking her back and forth like she was still my little baby in a crib. "I'm sorry," I whispered over and over. "I'm sorry, baby. I should have seen it. I should have stopped it."
She didn't speak.
She just cried harder. That night, I sat by her bedside while she slept. I didn't close my eyes once. My thoughts raced. What kind of mother had I been? How did I let this monster live under my roof? Share my bed? Hurt my child? But as the sun began to rise, I made a vow. I was going to fight for Lily with everything I had. The next few days were a whirlwind. There were police interviews, hospital visits, court hearings. The entire town was whispering. I could hear the rumors at the grocery store, the gas station, even at church. "Did you hear about Betty's husband? That poor girl, Lily. How could she not know?" I stopped going out. I stayed in that house, tending to Lily, trying to patch the wounds I helped create. She barely ate. She wouldn't go to school. She didn't want to talk to anyone. She just sat on the porch sometimes, staring at nothing, holding her stomach. I didn't know what to say to her. How do you talk to your daughter when her life's been stolen right in front of you? Then came the hardest day of all, our first doctor's appointment. They had to do an ultrasound. I watched the screen while Lily lay there, her face turned away. The doctor pointed to a tiny flickering spot. That's the heartbeat, she said. Lily didn't look. She just closed her eyes and whispered, I don't want it. The ride home was silent. That night, while I was washing dishes, Lily came into the kitchen and said, Mama, I want it gone. My hands stopped moving. What do you mean? I don't want to have this baby, she said. I want to get rid of it. My heart sank. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what was legal or right at that point. All I knew was she was hurting. So I did what I should have done long ago. I listened. I just want to feel normal again, she said. I want to go back to school. I don't want people to look at me like I'm broken. I pulled her into my arms. You're not broken, baby. You're the strongest person I know. But deep down, I knew this wasn't something hugs could fix. A few days later, I got a call from the sheriff. Robert had hired a lawyer. He was pleading not guilty. He was trying to paint Lily as a liar, a confused teen, a girl who made up stories. I felt the fire rise in my chest. This man had ruined our lives, and now he wanted to pretend it never happened? I hung up that call and walked straight to the old chest in my closet. Inside was a box I hadn't opened in over 20 years. Letters, photos, documents from Lily's birth. And under it all, a small black revolver I kept hidden for protection back when I lived alone. I stared at it. I touched the cold metal with my fingertips. My breath became shallow. And at that moment, something inside me snapped. I was going to pay Robert a visit. I sat there with the black revolver in my lap, my hands trembling, heart thudding loud in my chest. The house was quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall, the same one Robert bought years ago from a flea market. I stared at that gun for a long time. Minutes felt like hours. I wasn't a killer. I was a mother. But that night, I didn't feel like either. I felt like a woman who had been betrayed, who had failed her child, who had been made a fool by the man she trusted most. And I was tired of feeling helpless. Tired of people telling me to wait for justice. Justice wasn't coming fast enough. I stood up, walked over to the bathroom, and looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Her eyes were red, her face pale, her hair wild with worry and sleepless nights. That woman was drowning. I placed the gun back in the chest, locked it, and slid it under my bed. I wasn't going to kill Robert, not yet. But I was going to fight. And the fight would start in court. The next day, Lily and I were called in for the first official court hearing. I dressed her in the nicest dress she owned.
She didn't want to go.
She begged me, cried, shook her head the whole morning. I can't do it, Mama, she said. I can't sit in the same room with him. I kneeled in front of her and held her face. You're not doing this alone. I'm with you. I will never leave your side again. You are stronger than you think, Lily. The ride to the courthouse was silent. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. She was staring out the window, biting her fingernails, something she hadn't done since she was a little girl. When we walked into the courtroom, it felt like all eyes were on us. I could hear whispers again. Some folks looked at us with sympathy, others with judgment. And then I saw him, Robert, sitting across the room in a clean white shirt, tied tight around his neck, hands folded neatly like he was the innocent one. He looked straight at Lily. She froze. Her body stiffened, and I could feel her hand squeezing mine until it hurt. I squeezed back. You got this, I whispered. They called Lily to the stand. She took slow, shaky steps forward. Her voice quivered at first, but then, like something deep inside her snapped free, she began to speak clearly. He touched me, she said. At night, when Mama was sleeping. He told me it was normal. He said if I told, I'd ruin our family. The entire room fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Robert didn't move. His lawyer stood and said, Your Honor, we reject these accusations. This young girl has emotional issues. She's not a reliable witness. I almost leapt from my chair, but the judge held up his hand. We will hear her out, he said. Lily continued. She told them everything. The nights, the threats,
The pain.
the secrets, and then the pregnancy. At that moment, I saw people's faces change. Some women in the courtroom gasped. A man behind us shook his head and walked out. Even the judge looked shaken. Then came Robert's turn. He stood up, looked around the courtroom like he was in a movie. I loved that girl like my own, he said. This is a setup.
A lie.
My wife is using this to get rid of me. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. The judge didn't say much that day. He scheduled the next hearing and ordered Robert to remain in custody. Lily and I walked out, and the moment we stepped onto the courthouse steps, reporters rushed toward us. Miss Lily, are you okay? Mrs. Betty, did you really not know? I held my daughter close, shielding her from the flashing cameras. We got into our car and drove off in silence. That night, Lily didn't speak. She just went into her room, closed the door, and turned off the lights. I sat in the living room alone. I thought about everything. I thought about how I missed the signs. How I let this monster into my home. How I married him. How I didn't believe Lily when she first tried to tell me. And that pain cut deeper than any knife. But I wasn't going to let guilt swallow me. Not this time. The next morning, I made phone calls. I contacted women's shelters, therapists, even a lawyer of my own. I wanted to make sure Lily got every bit of help she needed. I called up Pastor James from the church and told him the truth. He was shocked but supportive. Betty, he said, you've got an army behind you. We're here. That was the first time in weeks I felt something other than shame. I walked into Lily's room that afternoon. She was lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling. You don't have to keep this baby, I said gently. Whatever you decide, I will stand by you. She blinked. What would you do, Mama? I sat down beside her. I don't know, but I know you've been through too much already. You're just a child, and you didn't ask for this. Tears rolled down her face. I don't want to be a mama. I just want to be a kid again. I hugged her tight. We'll find a way, I whispered. A few days later, we went back to the doctor. This time, it was for options. The doctor explained everything. Every choice, every risk, every timeline. Lily chose what she wanted. I won't say what that choice was, not yet, but I'll tell you this. She took her power back. For the first time in months, she looked in the mirror and saw more than her pain. She saw herself again. Weeks passed. Court hearings continued. And the pressure mounted. Robert's family started calling. His sister called me crying, saying he would never do this. Lily's confused. You know him. I hung up on her. I didn't care who believed us anymore. I believed my daughter. That was enough. Then, something happened that we weren't prepared for. One morning, Lily came downstairs holding a brown envelope. Her hands were shaking. I found this in Daddy Rob's drawer, she said. Inside were photos.
Dozens of them.
Polaroids. Of Lily. Of her sleeping. Some of her undressing. Others worse. I felt like I was going to vomit. We rushed the envelope to the police. This was the proof they needed. It wasn't just her word anymore. It was undeniable. The next court session was different. More serious. More intense. Robert didn't say a word. His lawyer didn't even try to defend him. He knew. Everyone knew. And just when I thought the worst was behind us, the judge said something that knocked the wind out of me. Due to lack of early action by the guardian, he said, Child Protective Services will evaluate whether the minor remains in maternal custody. I couldn't believe it. They were saying I might lose my daughter because I didn't protect her in time. That night, I sat outside in the rain, soaked, shivering,
Lost.
and that's when I made the hardest choice of all. The choice I told you about in the beginning. The one that changed everything. I decided to give up custody of Lily voluntarily. Not because I didn't love her, but because I loved her too much to risk losing her to strangers. I called my sister in Georgia, Lily's aunt. a kind woman with no kids of her own. She agreed to take Lily in, temporarily, to give her peace,
Space.
healing. I sat Lily down the next morning. "I'm sending you to Aunt Clara's," I said. Her eyes widened. "Are you giving me away?" "No, baby. I'm giving you a chance. A clean start. Somewhere far from this pain."
She cried.
I cried. But she understood. Sometimes love means letting go, just enough, so someone can breathe again. We packed her bags that evening. She didn't take much. Just some clothes, her favorite book, and a photo of us when she was 5 before everything went dark. The day she left, I hugged her tighter than I ever had in my life. "I'll come visit," I promised. "As much as you want." "I know," she whispered. "I love you, Mama." And just like that, she was gone. And I was left alone. But not empty. Because I knew the fire in me wasn't out. I wasn't finished. Because while Lily was gone, I was going to make sure Robert paid for everything. The day Lily left was the quietest my house had ever been. No footsteps in the hallway. No humming from the bathroom. No sounds of drawers opening or the fridge door closing. Just silence. Heavy, aching silence. I stood in the middle of her empty room for a long time, clutching her pillow, inhaling the faint scent of her hair. The walls still held her posters, her childhood drawings, memories of sleepovers, birthday mornings, even tears cried into the night when she was scared of the dark. Now the room was hollow, like my heart. I wasn't sure who I was without her. I had spent so many years keeping up the image of a good wife that I forgot how to just be a mother. But now I had no more excuses. No more distractions. I had to face what I'd allowed to grow under my roof. I had to do something. So I did. I got up the next morning at 5 o'clock, made myself coffee, sat down at the dining table, and pulled out a pen and paper. I began writing every single thing I remembered. From the first red flag to the moment Lily told me she was pregnant. It was like opening a dam that had been holding back a flood. I wrote how Robert used to discipline Lily when I wasn't around. How she flinched when he raised his voice. How she cried herself to sleep. I wrote about the nights I ignored her knocking on my bedroom door because Robert told me she just wants attention. I wrote about how he twisted my love, made me doubt my own daughter. It was time to stop hiding from the truth. That same day, I drove to the district attorney's office and handed over my journal, the photos Lily had found, and every memory I could muster. "This man doesn't deserve bail, freedom, or pity," I told the DA. "He's a predator who wore a husband's skin, and I want the full weight of the law on him." The DA, a young woman named Teresa Gonzalez, looked me straight in the eye and said, "We're going to take him down, Betty. I promise you." Finally, I felt seen. But just as things seemed to move forward, something happened that pulled me back into the pit again. One night, while making dinner, there was a loud knock on the door. I opened it, and standing there were 2 officers. "Mrs. Betty Caldwell?" one of them asked. "Yes. We're here to inform you that Robert Caldwell has been released on bail." I felt like the floor was ripped out from beneath me. "What?" I gasped. "How is that possible? With all the evidence? The photos? My daughter's statement." His lawyers argued procedural errors. The officer said, "Not meeting my eyes." They claimed some of the evidence was collected without a proper warrant. The judge granted temporary release. My hands began to shake. "You're telling me that man who hurt my daughter, got her pregnant, lied in court, is walking free?" "I'm sorry," the second officer said softly. "We thought you should be aware. There's a restraining order in place, but just be careful." They handed me a copy of the release order and walked away. I stood there on my porch, the cool night breeze brushing against my face, and all I could feel was rage. He was out, and I was alone. Lily was hundreds of miles away, and the devil I had once called my husband was now free to walk the same streets, breathe the same air, and pretend he was innocent. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by my front door with that revolver in my lap again. But I didn't want to kill him. Not yet.
No.
I wanted to expose him.
Publicly.
Permanently. So I started gathering every voice, Every woman, every person he had ever made uncomfortable. I created a Facebook page, Justice for Lily. I uploaded what I could legally share, the photos of the house, the timelines, the anonymous testimonies. I shared stories of how Lily changed, how she once loved school and art but became withdrawn. I didn't name her as the victim directly, but everyone knew. The page went viral. People from our town and beyond started sending messages. Women who had dated Robert in the past. A girl who had gone to high school with him and said he was creepy. A former coworker who left her job because he wouldn't stop making comments about her clothes. Even some of his own family members messaged me. One of his nieces wrote, "Aunt Betty, I saw how he looked at me when I was 12. I thought I was imagining it. Now I know I wasn't." The fire spread. The pressure mounted. News outlets picked up the story. They wanted interviews, footage, court records. But with the media attention came something else, something darker.
Threats.
Anonymous messages on my voicemail. "You better stop, or you'll regret it. Your daughter's lying and you know it. She deserved it." I didn't tell Lily. I didn't want her to feel any more afraid than she already did. But I kept every message, logged every number, reported it to the police. And still, Robert walked free. Then one night, it happened. I was coming home from the grocery store. The sun was just dipping behind the trees. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something strange. My front door was open, wide open. I knew I had locked it. My heart dropped. I parked the car, left the groceries inside, and crept toward the house with a trembling hand on my phone. I stepped inside. The living room light was on. And standing there in the middle of my house was Robert.
Calm. Smiling.
Holding a coffee mug like he still lived there. "You changed the curtains," he said casually. "Didn't think I'd notice, huh?" I didn't scream. I didn't run. I walked straight to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a hammer I kept for repairs. "Get out of my house," I said. He chuckled. "This is my house too, Betty. Not anymore." He took a step closer. "I missed you," he said. "I know you're mad, but deep down, you know this is all a misunderstanding. Lily's just confused. Girls her age." That's when I swung the hammer. I didn't hit him, but I smashed the coffee mug out of his hand and yelled, "Get out." Robert backed up. "Betty, you're crazy." I dialed 911 right there and let the operator hear his voice. "He broke into my house," I said. "My ex-husband. He's on bail. Please come quickly." Robert tried to run, but I locked the front door. "Not this time," I hissed. "You're going back to jail. And you're never getting out again." He banged on the door, tried to push past me. I stood my ground with the hammer raised. The police came within 10 minutes. They arrested him on the spot for violating bail, breaking and entering, and harassment. And that night, for the first time in a long time, I slept in peace. A week later, I flew out to Georgia to visit Lily. When I saw her on the porch with Aunt Clara, her face lit up. She ran into my arms like she was 5 years old again. I held her for a long time. Then we sat under the oak tree in the yard and I told her everything.
About the break-in.
About the Facebook page. About how strong people came forward because of her story. She listened quietly, then said something I'll never forget. "Mama, I'm proud of you." Those 4 words broke me. I cried in front of her, harder than I ever had. Because in that moment I knew, no matter how much we had lost, we were healing. Together. Lily was getting therapy. Enrolled in a new school. Started painting again. She even laughed. A real laugh. One that didn't hide behind pain. And Robert? He was back in jail. But this time, with federal charges. The trial was coming up and I would be testifying. Not just as a witness, but as a mother. A warrior. A woman who once looked away, but would never do so again. The day of the trial came faster than I expected. One minute, I was sitting on the porch in Georgia with Lily, drinking sweet tea and soaking in the sound of her laughter again, and the next, I was back in our small town in Tennessee, standing in front of the courthouse that had always seemed so far from justice. But this time, I wasn't just a silent wife. I was the woman who finally found her voice. The courthouse was buzzing with reporters, activists, neighbors, some supportive, some curious, and some just looking for gossip. I walked past them, holding my Bible in one hand and a photo of Lily as a child in the other. I didn't care about their cameras or their questions. I cared about one thing: speaking the truth. Inside, the courtroom was cold. The walls were plain, but the air felt heavy, like every lie Robert had ever told was sitting in the room with us. He was there too, sitting at the defense table in a suit that looked too tight for his smugness. His lawyer whispered something to him, and he chuckled. I had to look away before my hands started shaking again. The judge, a woman named Judge Harmon, walked in and called the court to order. And just like that, everything I had been preparing for began. The prosecution started by presenting Lily's medical records. The ultrasound photo, the journal entries I had written, the statements from Robert's niece and two former coworkers. Everything began falling into place like puzzle pieces that had been hidden for years. Then came my turn to testify. I stood, walked to the front, and took the oath. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do, I said, my voice firm. And then I looked straight at Robert. My name is Betty Caldwell. I began, and I was married to that man for over 20 years. I thought he was a good man. I thought he loved me, but I was wrong. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I ignored signs I should have seen. I allowed myself to believe he knew best. I failed my daughter when she needed me most. I didn't protect her the way a mother should. And for that, I will live with guilt every single day. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I didn't just come here to point fingers, I said. I came here to confess. To say I see the truth now. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure that truth is known. I talked about the nights Lily slept in her closet, the day she told me she was pregnant, the silence that fell over our house when she left, and how I made the choice to finally do what I should have done years ago, stand up for her. When I finished, the courtroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Robert's lawyer stood up to cross-examine me. He tried to twist my words, bring up our finances, our family troubles, anything to make me seem like a bitter woman trying to ruin a good man's name. Mrs. Caldwell, he said, pacing slowly, isn't it true that your daughter had emotional issues growing up? Emotional issues? I repeated, narrowing my eyes. You mean the emotional wounds caused by the man sitting over there? He looked caught off guard. My daughter was a happy, bright child until he started isolating her, I said. Until he began breaking her spirit little by little. Objection, he said quickly. Speculation. Sustained, the judge said. But it didn't matter. I'd said what needed to be said. After my testimony, the courtroom shifted. I could feel it. People who had come unsure were now looking at Robert differently. His charm couldn't hide the sickness anymore. Not in the light of truth. Then came the biggest moment, the day Lily testified. She walked into that courtroom, wearing a plain blue dress. Her hair pulled back. Her belly showing now, 6 months pregnant. She looked young, fragile. But when she took the stand, her voice was steady. I didn't want to believe it was happening, she began. Because he was my stepdad. He bought me toys when I was little. Took me to school. Helped me with homework. He was supposed to love me. She paused, breathing in sharply. But when I turned 14, everything changed. He started knocking on my door late at night, saying things that didn't feel right. I told my mom once, but she thought I was just being dramatic. I felt like someone punched me in the chest. But I stayed still. I had to hear this. I owed it to her. When I was 16, he started touching me. Then it got worse. And I didn't say anything, because I thought no one would believe me. The courtroom was silent. I finally told my mom when I found out I was pregnant. And even then, I was scared she'd still choose him. She turned to look at me then. Our eyes met. But she didn't.
She believed me.
And she made a choice. A hard one, but the right one. I wept silently as she finished her testimony. The trial lasted 2 more days. The defense tried to pick apart every detail. Claimed Lily was mentally unstable. Claimed I was vengeful. Claimed Robert was a victim of a modern witch hunt.
But the jury didn't buy it.
On the seventh day, they returned with the verdict. On the charge of aggravated sexual assault of a minor, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of endangering the welfare of a child, guilty. On the charge of unlawful impregnation of a minor, guilty. And just like that, Robert was no longer just my ex-husband. He was a convicted predator. I cried as they led him away in handcuffs.
He didn't look at me.
He didn't look at Lily. He stared at the floor, his mouth set in a straight line. The man who once thought he could get away with anything had finally lost everything. After the trial, there was a peace I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't perfect. The scars were still there. But Lily was safe. I was free. And justice had been served. We returned to Georgia, where Aunt Clara had already begun turning her spare room into a nursery. Lily's cheeks were fuller now, her laughter easier. And I finally began to sleep through the night. One afternoon, I asked her if she wanted to go for a walk. We went down a small trail near Clara's house, where the trees formed a shady tunnel and the breeze felt soft on our skin. "You think people like him ever feel regret?" she asked suddenly. I thought for a moment. "Maybe," I said. "But it doesn't matter. Regret doesn't undo what they did. All we can do is heal, grow, and protect others." She nodded slowly. "I want to help girls like me," she said. "Someday, when I'm strong enough." I smiled. "You already are." And she was. Weeks turned into months. Lily gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Hope. And the first time I held her in my arms, I felt something shift deep in my soul. This child was born from pain, but she would be raised in love. She would never know the horrors her mother endured. She would only know strength, safety, and kindness. Because we, Lily and I, had made that choice. We broke the cycle. And now we were building something new. Something beautiful. One night, as I rocked baby Hope to sleep, I whispered, "Your mama is the bravest woman I've ever known." And I meant it. Because Lily taught me what it means to fight. Not with fists, but with truth. Not with silence, but with courage. And above all, she taught me that love is not blind. It's clear-eyed and fierce and willing to stand up, even when the world says sit down. So to anyone out there listening to this story, if you're a mother, listen to your child. If you're a child, speak your truth, no matter how afraid you are. If you're a neighbor, a friend, a teacher, a stranger, don't look away when something feels wrong. Because silence is the soil where evil grows. And breaking that silence? That's how we change the world. It had been 3 months since Robert was sentenced. 3 months since Lily gave birth to little Hope. 3 months since our lives took a sharp turn from horror into healing. But healing, I've learned, doesn't always come in a straight line. It zigzags.
It twists.
It surprises you with new aches, and sometimes with unexpected peace. Life in Georgia was slow and steady. Aunt Clara's house became our new beginning. Every morning, I woke up to the sound of birds and the smell of fresh dew. Hope would coo from her crib, and Lily would shuffle into the kitchen in her slippers, hair messy, eyes tired, but glowing with the soft fire of motherhood. There were days she cried while holding the baby. There were nights she couldn't sleep, haunted by what Robert had done. But she didn't crumble. She faced it. Some mornings she'd just stare at Hope and whisper, "You're safe now. I promise." And every time she said it, I felt both proud and ashamed. Proud of her strength, ashamed of how long it took me to find mine. One day, as we sat on the porch folding baby clothes, Lily turned to me. "Do you think I'll ever be normal again?" she asked. I put down the tiny onesie in my hand and looked her in the eye. "No," I said gently, "but you'll be something better. You'll be a survivor. You'll be a mother who raised her child in truth. You'll be a woman who didn't let what happened to her become who she is." She didn't speak, but a single tear rolled down her cheek. I reached over, wiped it gently, and smiled. "We're not broken, baby. We're just reshaped. Still, the peace didn't last forever. About a month later, we got a letter in the mail. It was addressed to me, no return name. The handwriting was messy, familiar, but rushed. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You destroyed everything. You turned my family against me. But this isn't over. I may be in prison, but I still have people on the outside. You'll regret this. Both of you. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. I crumpled the letter, my heart racing. Who's it from? Lily asked, holding hope to her chest. I didn't answer immediately. Then I took a deep breath. It's from Robert. Her arms tightened around the baby. We contacted the authorities right away. They opened an investigation. The prison denied that Robert had sent it, said there was no record of him mailing anything. But I knew better.
He found a way.
He always found a way. For the first time in weeks, I felt afraid again. I started double-checking locks, watching shadows, staying up at night, peeking through the curtains. And then one evening, Clara called us into the living room. There's someone parked outside, she said, peeking through the blinds. Lily's face went pale. She clutched Hope tighter. I walked out the front door, heart pounding. There was a black pickup truck idling at the end of the driveway. Tinted windows.
No plats.
I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the vehicle. The moment the flash went off, the engine revved, and the truck sped away. We reported it to the police again, but they said there wasn't much they could do without a license plate. That night, I stayed awake with a baseball bat by my bed. I thought we had escaped. I thought the courtroom had been the final battle. But evil sometimes leaves a trail. We installed cameras around the house, changed our routines. I even asked a neighbor, Mr. Jerome, a retired Marine, to keep an eye out during the day. You just say the word, Miss Betty, he said, patting his gun holster. Ain't no monster gonna mess with you on my watch. Despite the fear, we didn't let it stop us from living. Lily enrolled in an online program for trauma counseling. She said she wanted to help other girls like her someday. Hope began to smile more. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine like she knew I was her grandma and protector. Her giggles became medicine for all of us. Then one afternoon, we got a call from a woman named Sarah, a social worker from Tennessee. I know what happened to your daughter, she said. And I want you to know, she's not alone. I sat on the phone with her for over an hour. She had worked with victims of familial abuse for over a decade. There's more girls out there, she told me. Many who never get justice. But your story? It could help others come forward. I told Lily about the call. She was quiet at first, then she nodded. Maybe it's time, she said. Maybe I'm ready to talk. We arranged to speak at a local community center, just a small gathering of survivors and allies. Lily stood in front of the crowd, nervous at first, holding Hope in her arms. But when she started to speak, something happened. Her voice grew stronger. Her shoulders lifted. She wasn't just telling her story, she was reclaiming it. My stepfather hurt me, she said. But he didn't destroy me. He didn't destroy us. We are still here. We are still standing. The room erupted in applause. After the event, a young girl approached us. Couldn't have been more than 16. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, "He did the same thing to me. And I've been too scared to tell anyone." Lily hugged her tightly. That night, back home, we all sat around the kitchen table eating Clara's peach cobbler. There was laughter in the room. Real laughter. The kind we hadn't heard in years. But just as I began to relax again, a knock came at the door. It was the sheriff. "Miss Caldwell," he said, removing his hat. "I need you to come with me. We've got a situation." Lily stood up fast. "What's wrong?" He looked at me, then at Hope, then back at me. "We received a report that someone's been hired to make sure you keep quiet. We don't have proof yet, but we believe it's connected to your ex-husband." My heart sank. "We're putting you under temporary protective custody," he said. "Just until we can track the threat." I looked around at the life we were trying to rebuild. The crib in the corner. The kitchen table. The family photos on the wall. Then I looked at Lily. "We'll go," I said. But we won't disappear. We won't hide. The sheriff nodded. We packed that night. A safe house was prepared in another county. Quiet, secluded, guarded. As we drove there, Hope sleeping in her car seat, Lily holding my hand, I whispered a prayer. God, give us strength. Give us courage. And above all, give us peace. The safe house was small but cozy. And though the fear lingered, there was also a sense of relief knowing someone was watching over us. Lily continued her counseling classes online. I started writing again, filling journals with everything we'd been through. I told myself one day I'd publish a book. Not for fame, but so other women wouldn't feel alone. Then one day, the sheriff returned to the safe house with news. We've made an arrest, he said. A man named Trevor Collins. Says he was hired through a third party. We believe it ties back to your ex's old business associate. I exhaled deeply. But here's the good news, he added. We're filing new charges. And this time, your ex is going away for a very long time. No chance of parole. I looked at Lily. We both smiled. That night, we stepped outside under the stars. The wind was calm. The world felt still. He won't haunt us forever, Lily whispered. No, I agreed. Because we've already won. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you, Mama, she said. And those words, after everything, were the greatest victory of all. The news of Robert's additional charges gave us hope, real hope. The kind that doesn't flicker with fear or hide behind locked doors. It was the first time in a long time that Lily slept soundly through the night. And me? I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her and Hope breathe, and I smiled. But even as Robert was being dragged deeper into the justice system, our healing was still ongoing. Because justice in the courtroom doesn't immediately fix the pain in your heart. No, healing is slower than that. It comes in quiet moments and unexpected tears. We stayed at the safe house for another 3 weeks, just to be sure. During that time, Lily's strength blossomed. She was becoming more than just a survivor. She was a mother, a fighter, and now a voice. One evening, she sat beside me on the porch and said, Mama, I think I'm ready to share my story with the world. I want to write it. I want to speak it. I want other girls who've been through this to know they're not alone. I looked at her, my chest swelling with pride. Baby, that's exactly what this world needs. And I'll help you. Every step of the way. So that's what we did. We left the safe house once the danger cleared and moved to a small, friendly town in South Carolina. There, we got a tiny home with a little garden in front. Hope took her first steps in that garden, and Lily cried as she watched her daughter wobble toward a butterfly. We planted sunflowers, tomatoes, and lavender. The neighbors were kind. A retired teacher named Ms. Marla brought us fresh pies every Friday. And across the street, a young couple had a baby the same age as Hope. For once, we had community.
Safety. Love.
Lily started volunteering at a local women's center. She spoke to small groups of women, most of them broken, quiet, afraid to lift their heads. But every time Lily finished telling her story, something shifted in those rooms. Eyes lit up, shoulders straightened. Tears fell, yes, but those tears were not of shame. They were of release. Meanwhile, I began writing again. I created a blog called Grandma's Tales, where I told real stories about women who had been through the fire and came out stronger. I changed the names, but the emotions were real. The readers began to grow, thousands of them, then tens of thousands. Women wrote to me from everywhere. Your story saved my life. I thought I was alone until I read this. I finally found the courage to speak up. Then one day, something happened that would change our lives again. It was a Friday morning. Lily was at the women's center. I was watching Hope crawl around the living room floor with a stuffed bunny in her hand.
The phone rang.
Hello, is this Mrs. Caldwell? The voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Michelle Walters from the National Center for Victim Advocacy. We've been following your blog and your daughter's work. We'd like to invite you both to speak at our upcoming national conference in Washington, D.C. next month. I froze. Me?
Speak.
I asked. Yes, she said. We believe your story and your daughter's strength can inspire thousands. We'll cover all expenses. All we ask is that you come and speak from the heart. I said yes. When Lily got home, I told her the news. Her eyes widened. Washington, D.C.? Yes, baby, I smiled. We're taking your voice to the nation. The weeks passed quickly. I helped Lily prepare her speech. She wrote and rewrote, practiced in front of mirrors, recorded herself, and deleted the videos. She wanted every word to matter. Then came the day of the trip. We dressed in our best. I wore a soft blue dress with pearl earrings, and Lily wore a simple white blouse with black trousers. Hope had a tiny floral dress with matching booties. When we arrived at the conference hall, I was overwhelmed. Hundreds of people filled the room. Survivors, advocates, counselors, teachers, even lawmakers. When Lily stepped on stage, the room went quiet. She stood at the podium, holding her notes in shaking hands. Then she looked out into the crowd and said, "Before I tell you my story, I want to say this. If you're in this room and you've ever felt helpless, hopeless, or ashamed because of what someone did to you, I see you. I believe you. And you are not alone." From that moment, her voice became stronger. She shared everything: the abuse, the betrayal, the pregnancy, the shame, the silence. And then she talked about choosing life, choosing to speak up, choosing to forgive herself.
People cried.
People clapped. People stood. When she finished, the entire room gave a standing ovation. One by one, women came up to hug her, thank her, and share their own stories. Later that night, back at the hotel, we sat on the bed, exhausted, overwhelmed, but glowing. "You did it," I told her. She smiled, holding Hope on her lap.
No, Mama.
We did it. That conference opened doors. Soon, we were invited to speak at colleges, churches, and support centers across the country. Lily's story was featured in magazines. I was asked to turn Grandma's Tales into a book. Life was changing in a way I never imagined. But just when we thought our story was complete, one final twist came knocking. A woman named Camille reached out to me through my blog. "I'm Robert's first wife," she wrote. "He hurt me too. But I was too afraid to tell anyone back then. I thought I was the only one." We met her in a quiet cafe in Alabama. She was soft-spoken, with deep scars beneath her calm eyes. "I just want to say thank you," she said to Lily. "Because of you, I finally spoke up, and I've started healing." It reminded me that our pain, no matter how deep, can be someone else's survival. The final blow came a month later. Robert was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The new charges, combined with witness testimonies from Camille and another woman, sealed his fate. We didn't cheer. We didn't dance. We sat in silence. Then Lily whispered, "It's over." And this time it really was. Hope is 3 years old now. She has my eyes and her mother's smile. She calls me Granny B, and every morning she runs into my arms and says, "I love you big much." Lily is studying to become a licensed counselor. Her goal is to open her own center someday, a safe space for girls and women who need more than just a roof, but a path forward. And me? I'm still writing, still telling stories, still asking women to leave their shame behind and pick up their truth instead. This journey wasn't what I wanted for my daughter. I would have given anything to protect her from it. But now, standing on the other side of it, I see something I never expected. Redemption. Not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that transforms it. The kind that says you're still here, and that means something. To anyone listening, if you've been through something similar, I want you to know that you are not broken. You are not to blame. And you are not alone. My name is Betty Caldwell. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and a survivor's mother. And this has been our true story.